We're here today to talk about Hsiao-Hsien's breakthrough film, um, A City of Sadness, Beijing Chengshi, which the English title is a literal translation of the Chinese. Quite a complicated history because the Japanese were leaving in 1945, Japan having been just defeated after the atom bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And Japan having been the colonial power in Taiwan for most of the first half of the 20th century. And in 1949, the arrival of the Kuomintang, evacuating from Shanghai, the Kuomintang being the KMT, they were known at the time as, led by Chiang Kai-shek, who had been the nationalist government in China under the Republic of China. And they evacuated from Shanghai after being defeated in the Civil War by the communists, and they fled to Taiwan and set up a government in exile, as it were, in Taiwan, and named Taiwan the Republic of China, which is what they brought with them from the mainland. Well, Hsiao-Hsien's film, City of Sadness, is set in exactly that period, from the departure of the Japanese in 1945 through to the arrival of the Kuomintang government in 1949. So 4 years, which are years of major turbulence and transition in Taiwan, and which were all made effectively before Hsiao-Hsien was born. Hsiao-Hsien was born in 1947. And this topic had been off limits, thanks to martial law, because it was the first massacre of native Taiwanese, unarmed native Taiwanese, carried out by Kuomintang officials and armed militia in 1947. It took place in February, at the end of February 1947, on the streets of a suburb of Taipei, when unarmed demonstrators were suddenly attacked and shot in quite large numbers by the Kuomintang militia. Well, this became known as the 2/28 incident, meaning February the 28th. And it was, as I said, an off-limits topic for 40 years, until 87. And it was spoken of only in whispers, because if you talked about it publicly, you could be arrested and imprisoned. It was that sensitive. So Hsiao-Hsien wanted to tackle it and devised this story not only as a way of tackling that incident, of depicting it, not literally depicting it. He didn't try to recreate the massacre on screen. He didn't show people being gunned down on the street. But he has it happening kind of off screen and focuses on its impact on his protagonist, called Wen Qing, the character played by Tony Leung, the Hong Kong star, who is a deaf mute and who is kind of oblivious to what's going on because of being a deaf mute. But he happens to be visiting Taipei that day, and is subsequently on the train journey home to Hualien is challenged by Kuomintang officers because they're rounding up anybody who might have been a supporter of the demonstration and might have been a witness to the massacre. And in a way, his deaf muteness has been the key to the film, because he can't speak, he can't describe what he might or might not have seen. He can't even say who he is in vocal terms. His testimony, as Hsiao-Hsien told me at the time, was based on a real-life deaf mute whom they interviewed as part of their research. Anyway, the Japanese were kind of respected by mainland Chinese, ex-mainland Chinese, for most of what they did, including the crackdown on Aboriginal tribes, rebellious Aboriginal tribes, but mostly for building Taiwan's social infrastructure, including, as I said, the roads, the railways, the police service, the army, the hospitals, and so on and so on. The postal service, a proper postal service, depended entirely on the Japanese. So we have an ambiguous transition when the Japanese leave. And the film is at pains to show touching separations of native Taiwanese, some of whom have taken the Japanese regions of their name. So unstigmatizing is this. Nobody feels at all guilty about being Japanese or quasi-Japanese at this time. So Hinoe, for example, is one male character. The way the male character reads his name, as you will see, he's a friend of Lin Wenqing, the character played by Tony Leung. And he's the one who introduces him to the dissident intellectuals who are anti-Kuomintang people who meet in Lin Wenqing's photo studio for their subversive dissident discussions, which we see at intervals throughout the film. And we see his touching, sad farewell to Japanese friends who are returning to Japan because there's no longer a place for them in Taiwan. The two writers didn't know at first hand anything about Taiwan in the 1940s. They were born too late or weren't in Taiwan at the time, and neither did Hsiao-Hsien himself. So they had to do a lot of research, and they did. They interviewed lots of people. They compiled enormous scrapbooks of material about the period. And I had a chance when I went back to their base, I think in Keelung, as I remember, the nearest big city to the village of Dahu, where they were filming when I visited. And I had a look through these and took some photos of one of the scrapbooks, the one that was mainly visual. There were other scrapbooks were filled with mostly press cuttings, because Taiwan, of course, at the time had a very free press, and it did report the massacre of February 1947. I ended up spending a lot of time with Hsiao-Hsien over that year and the following years because, as we noted at the beginning, the film was a big success in Venice. It won the top prize in Venice. As a result, it went on to a big success in Taiwan, in the Taiwan market. It was also sold to many foreign countries and did quite well as an art house film in quite a lot of countries around the world. This is what Hsiao-Hsien said to me. Chinese tradition holds that you should keep your personal affairs to yourself. You never discuss family affairs in front of others. But I don't necessarily see this as a good thing. I'm making City of Sadness not because I want to open up old wounds, as the Chinese always put it, but because I think we have to face ourselves and our history if we're going to understand where we come from and where we're going. The film doesn't just touch on, but deals directly with the February 28 incident. I think it's something we have to face and resolve in our minds. And the fact that it's been a taboo subject for so long makes it all the more important that we do so. It took a lot of research, he went on. I spent 3 months reading everything I could find about the period before I even started thinking about the story. We interviewed a lot of people too, including an old deaf mute, whose memories gave us the basis for the character played by Tony Leung. But I don't think it makes any fundamental difference whether your characters are drawn from life or purely fictional. What's important is their credibility as human beings. So it eventually comes down to my own understanding of human nature. I asked him about the fact that I'd watched him filming, and he seemed to be interfering quite a lot with the actor. Not interfering, but showing the actors how to do things, perform gestures. There's one still that I had of him showing one of the actresses how to roll a ball of wool, something he learnt from his own grandmother back in the 40s when he was a child, before the family moved to Taiwan. He says, whenever I came on set and faced the actors, I found I want to make changes. I use the script as a foundation, not as the building itself. I'm not interested in criticizing the characters. I just want to see them in all their complexity and their contradictions. My role is to observe them. Maybe that explains why I don't move the camera much. This is how I like to look at things, involved, but not too involved. It's important to me to keep a broad perspective. I'm dealing with Taiwanese history here, but I've always considered Taiwan to be part of China. And I think I make films for all Chinese people. After the success of this film, He went on to make another film, what was supposed to originally be a 3-film contract, but because the second one was not a big hit like the first one, the contract ended with the second film. But he made a film called The Puppet Master, again with Li Tianlu. Li Tianlu had been playing grandfathers and patriarchs in both Daughter of the Nile and then this film, City of Sadness. In The Puppet Master, and he was in real life a traditional master of puppets in Taiwan style, with a very salty set of memories and a very salty way of speaking in the Taiwanese dialect. Hsiao-Hsien became a figure that Hsiao-Hsien felt he just had to capture before it was too late. So he used Li Tianlu's memories as the trigger for a film that would look back at the Japanese colonial period, the period before City of Sadness starts. So that's what The Puppet Master is about. It's rooted, founded in Li Tianlu's real-life memories of that period. I gather that as we speak, Puppet Master has also been restored at long last to 4K and is likely to be re-released before too long. So let's hope that that's true. Those of us lucky enough to see City of Sadness again as it was meant to be seen, as we are today, can look forward in the hopefully near future to seeing Puppet Master 2 again as it was meant to be seen. The two together provide a perspective on Taiwan's 20th century history which is unique and irreplaceable. Nobody else has chronicled these periods in this vivid way. And if you want to know how Taiwan came to be what Taiwan became in later years, these are the films that sketch the foundations most vividly.